President Ramaphosa has ordered every single ANC member back onto the streets ahead of the local elections. Door-to-door visits, branch meetings, rallies, the lot. Campaigning is now mandatory, no exceptions. Now, the problem here is that order came just after Ramaphosa had seen up close exactly what ANC members are now being asked to defend. You see, we have some awkward timing on our hands here. Just before issuing the order, Ramaphosa had toured the municipalities around Rustenburg, where the ANC's failures were reportedly hard to ignore. We're talking potholes, broken infrastructure, and severe water shortages. I mean, even the ANC's anniversary rally reflected that strain. Traffic chaos, a sparsely filled stadium, and people leaving early in the heat. Yet, from the stage, Ramaphosa still listed fixing local governments among the ANC's top priorities heading into 2026. But this is where the tension lies. You see, Ramaphosa is asking ANC members to campaign hardest where the party's failures are easiest to point out. As you can imagine, local government is where South Africans experience the broken promises of politicians up close. You know, when the water doesn't run, when the roads fall apart, and when the refuse just doesn't get collected. So what this weekend really marked was this shift in expectations. The ANC is no longer campaigning as a party of dominance, but rather as one that is asking voters to judge it on incremental improvements under pressure. And so with this in mind, this next test won't be about speeches or strategy weekends. It will be whether local governments, often the ANC's weakest link, can show visible improvements before voters return to the ballot box. So to understand why President Ramaphosa is throwing so much weight behind this year's local elections, you have to understand how differently they work from the national ones, and why the ANC can't afford to get them wrong. National elections decide who governs the country and controls parliament. Now, local elections, though, decide who runs municipalities. The council's responsible for water, refuse removal, roads, and basic services in every town and city. In other words, they decide who manages the parts of government that people tend to interact with every single day. Now, the difference here changes how people vote. National elections are shaped by big narratives, party leaders, and long-term identity. But local elections are brutally practical. You see, if Party A runs your municipality and the water doesn't run, the roads fall apart, and the trash stops getting collected, voters grow disillusioned. And so when national elections come around, people don't suddenly forget who failed them closest to home. And so local performance becomes this baseline for trust, and it generally follows parties straight into the national vote. That's why the local elections have become the ANC's danger zone. You see, since the last local elections in 2021, the party has lost control of key councils and it's been forced into coalitions in several cities, often resulting in unstable governance and stalled service delivery. And so for Ramaphosa now, winning locally isn't about momentum, it's about survival. Municipal performance now shapes how voters judge the ANC long before the next national election arrives. So while parties fight for votes, companies are fighting for something far quieter: your daily decisions. Checkers has spent the past few years building a reputation for ambitious retail features and functionalities. But its latest collaboration with Jamie Oliver is centered around a simple question that many households face each evening: what should we make for dinner? Millions of their extra saving customers will now receive personalized video messages from Jamie Oliver recommending dinner ideas based on their real shopping habits. So the suggestions are informed by what each customer generally buys and matched to simple family-friendly recipes that they are likely to enjoy. All the ingredients can then be delivered through 60/60 in under 60 minutes, reducing the gap between deciding on a meal and actually making it. More broadly though, this move reflects an underlying shift in how big retailers are competing. You see, speed and price are no longer enough on their own. Increasingly, the battle is about reducing friction points and decision fatigue, using data not just to sell more, but to help customers think less. It's a telling example of where modern retail is heading. Convenience not just measured in minutes saved, but in decisions avoided. And before we cruise on to our bagel bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, South Africa's trade deficit with its BRICS partners is reportedly wider than expected, with research showing imports far outpacing exports since joining the bloc. Now, this imbalance is reportedly driven by raw material exports and manufactured imports, raising questions about whether this membership is actually delivering real economic gains. On that note of BRICS, South Africa has defended its joint local naval drills with BRICS partners including China, Russia, and Iran, saying that they are protecting shipping lanes and maritime trade. You see, these exercises come amid heightened tensions with the US and growing scrutiny of our government's foreign policy stance. And fresh chaos at South Africa's airports has been blamed on failures at air traffic and navigation services, where staff shortages and outdated procedures disrupted flights at OR Tambo, leaving airlines and passengers increasingly frustrated. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. But first, my friends, if you are enjoying the show, please help in supporting the channel through liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends and family. It goes a lot further than you think. And now, with that out the way, let's get into it. The question is, which country is the largest producer of bananas in the world? Is it A, Philippines, B, Ecuador, or C, India? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. With matric results dropping this week, here's a quick curiosity that you may have thought about before. Why do we call it matric? As we know, the word comes from matriculation, which is an old European term that meant being formally admitted into the next stage of education, usually university. South Africa inherited it through British and Afrikaans academic systems, where matric became shorthand for your final school leaving milestone. Over time, though, matric stopped meaning admission and started being used interchangeably with grade 12. But what's more interesting is that while most other countries kept the idea, they changed the name. So simply put, in the UK, it's now called A-levels. In the US, it's a high school diploma. And across much of Europe, it's some version of a baccalaureate. You see, same milestone, just different labels. And so South Africa is unusual in a way because we never really rebranded it. We kept using matric, even as many other education systems moved on. And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is India, producing more bananas than the Philippines and Ecuador combined. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you guys had a well-rested weekend and wishing you all the best for the week ahead. And on that note, be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.